Hi, welcome to Dark Moon podcast number 6, our 6th episode of Dark Moon. I'm here with my lovely colleague and co-host Yerevan, and today we're talking about 5G wireless technology and the dangers that it poses to life on this planet in general, to human health, to animal health, to plant life. It's a major threat, and the idea that electromagnetic fields in general cause health damage there's been work done on that for decades now, and this work is just reaching a peak now because 5G is so incredibly dangerous. So it's not that EMFs were not dangerous before, it's that things are ramping up considerably with 5G. So as Yerevan and I are both professional astrologers, we are going to start the show with a little rundown of the astrology that we would associate with this rollout of 5G. And Yerevan, would you like to start, or would you like me to start? How would you like to?
Sure, I can say a little bit about that. Something that you just mentioned right before the show, and I've been talking a lot about this whole Saturn-Pluto conjunction that started off 2020 in the sign of Capricorn, and this has been building for at least a couple of years, and it's not the end of the intensity of that, because there's a lot going on in the sign of Capricorn, including the build up to the US Pluto return. And since the US is so influential to the rest of the world, this is going to impact the whole planet in some way, shape, or form. So there's the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, there's the Great Conjunction, or they call it there's another name for what it is, the Great Chronology. I forget exactly what that's called, but it's when Jupiter and Saturn are completing a cycle of conjunctions, which happens every 20 years in a sign of the same element. So this is a huge year in many respects, and both of us have been talking about Saturn's entry into Aquarius, which just happened right after the equinox, and how Aquarius is the sign of, it's a sign that relates to scientific advancements and to all things electrical and all things that pertain to the masses and crowds and groups. And so there's positive and negative to that, but of course today we're going to talk about how that ties into the onslaught of electric related attacks, EMF, in the form of 5G, and how this is all tied in to current world events.
Yes. And you mentioned the United States Pluto return. Do you know what degree that is, or when that is going to be occurring? Not to put you on the spot, but
no, yeah, it is. I think the exact conjunction happens in 2022 at 27 degrees of Capricorn, and so this, I actually just wrote a post on my blog website that this Saturn-Pluto conjunction that just happened did activate, by a few degrees. It's not an exact degree conjunction, but it's still, it's kind of a sign of things to come. We're building up the effects of this conjunction are already building up. So as it's getting closer, you're going to see a lot more chaotic things coming up. And that Saturn-Pluto conjunction was 22 degrees of Capricorn, which is close enough to say, okay, that something's happening. Something is definitely being triggered here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, just to give you the exact date,
Oh, February, I think.
January 12th, 2020 is when, yeah.
Oh, that conjunction, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Saturn and Pluto that Yerevan's talking about. And so this is a huge moment when these sort of heavy hitter planets come together. And we won't experience another Saturn-Pluto conjunction until February 2054. So that's kind of the scale that we're working on. And yes, I'll just give the dates also for Saturn in Aquarius. As Yerevan mentioned, Saturn just moved into Aquarius March 21st, and it will make an initial stint. It'll set up shop in the early degrees of Aquarius, and then it'll retrograde back out of Aquarius. It leaves Aquarius July 1st. So we have a little kind of taste of what's to come. And oh goodness, what a taste we're getting, aren't we? Between March equinox and July 1st, 2020. Then Saturn will re-enter Aquarius December 17th, 2020. And at the same time, Jupiter will enter Aquarius. And those two bodies will form a conjunction. As Yerevan's mentioning, they make a conjunction once every 20 years. So it's kind of, again, another sort of big moment, big astrological moment. And that happens at December solstice. And the interesting thing is that also Chiron will be at the same place from where it is at March equinox. It will be back in that place at December solstice as well. So all of this, Saturn and Jupiter entering Aquarius is really sort of the precursor to the Pluto in Aquarius transit, which follows immediately on the heels of Saturn leaving Aquarius. So Saturn leaves Aquarius March 7th, 2023. Pluto enters Aquarius right around March equinox of 2023, and it'll be in that sign for 20 years. And so one of the things, Pluto relates to power, Saturn relates to control, authority, authoritarianism, and Aquarius, like Yerevan mentioned, is related to scientific advances, electrical current frequency, and also technology in general, global issues, community issues, group issues. And so we can see all of this sort of rolled up into what's going on right now. As far as the Chiron and Aries element, Chiron is the wounded healer. So it relates to elements of health and healing. And it is, since 2018, it's been in Aries. And Aries is the sign of the military and soldiers and warriors and attacks, right? War attacks. And so what we're seeing right now with Chiron in early Aries is the rollout of medical martial law, really health-based martial law. And we're seeing attacks through frequency, right? Which would be the Aquarius element. We're also seeing attacks related to the removal of our liberties, our freedoms, our freedom of movement. All of these types of things our human rights are sort of being curtailed and stepped on at this time. And really interesting, one thing that just came up is Saturn relates to restrictions and constriction, and Aquarius relates to community. So we're seeing this huge global constriction of
and fear. Saturn relates to fear.
Exactly. So terror being used to constrict our social activities, our group activities, our community life, all of this type of stuff. So that's kind of basically the understanding that this is the powers that be certainly use astrology to plan their nefarious deeds, their agendas, the psyops that they're rolling out, the false flags that they use. War attacks are often used. We've done a show previously about war attacks that go on at March equinox. March equinox is a common time for the powers that be to unleash something related to war. And the previous two major offensives were set to a March equinox when Uranus was changing signs. So March 2003, Uranus moved into Pisces. That was associated with the invasion of Iraq. Of course, following the false flag of 9/11, the World Trade Centers and Building 7 coming down, etc. The second, so then Uranus spends 7 or 8 years in a sign. Then we had another major offensive March 2011, which was the bombing of Libya and the assassination of Gaddafi, coinciding with Fukushima, which I believe was a covert act of nuclear warfare. Now, I was actually expecting the big event to happen last March equinox, because that's when Uranus moved into Taurus again, right? So it would have followed the pattern of March equinox with Uranus moving into a new sign, coinciding with a big offensive. But of course, I didn't foresee that they would be waiting for the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and they'd be waiting for Saturn to enter Aquarius, disposited by Uranus and Taurus. So the astrology is kind of similar, but it was
they were already doing this behind the scenes. It just wasn't released.
Yeah, absolutely. The big event was coinciding with March equinox 2020 this time around. So yeah. So the topic of the show in particular is the rollout of 5G, and the rollout of 5G in particular as an energy weapon. So as something that is attacking our health. And we see somewhat of a connection, I believe, well, I'd say a strong connection to the current situation, the current sort of, or what I would see as an orchestrated pandemic, and 5G causing immune system suppression, because the countries that had the hugest outbreaks and the most deaths were all countries that have 5G basically turned on leading into that time. Wuhan in particular was lit up with 5G. October 31st, 2019, I believe, was the date that it was turned on. The global pandemic drill, event 201. So there was a global pandemic drill, just coincidentally, on October 18th, 2019. In New York City, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were involved, the World Economic Forum, John Hopkins Health Security Institute or something or other. They were all involved. That was October 18th. And then we also had the World Military Games going on in Wuhan, October 18th to the 27th. So all of this sort of was the precursor to what this pandemic was. Italy as well was a country that had 5G, basically turned on leading into this. Even the Princess cruise ship lines had 5G on them. So there's definitely an element related to immune system suppression. And the thing that 5G does in particular, the frequency that it's putting out is 60 gigahertz, which is a frequency apparently that will deplete oxygen. So it damages oxygen oxygen molecules, I guess, in the body, and depletes it from the body, which of course would coincide with respiratory distress and things of that nature. Anyway, sorry not to go on too much, but is there anything you want to?
Right. In addition, the skin as the largest organ has signals and literally has these receivers for the electromagnetic currents that's emitted from 5G. And those signals are very detrimental to human health and animals. There have been studies of animals being too close to the towers that have been seriously affected, and like birds. There was a study about some birds in the Netherlands. I don't know if that can, if that was accurate, but yeah, this is something that people should be more concerned about and look into. And there's a book that I just bought, and it's called I'd highly recommend this book for people that want to understand how the body is literally and has an electrical field around it. It's called The Body Electric by Robert Becker, Electromagnetism and the Foundation of Life. And so in this book, he talks about how basically the body gives and receives these different electrical impulses and signals. And I think the positive part of Saturn in Aquarius, I'm hoping, and the whole Aquarian age that's coming up with Pluto in Aquarius, I hope that there are more scientific discoveries that reveal how the body is made up of energy. And that way we can verify that what our ancestors have been practicing for thousands of years already, and, you know, in terms of shamanic medicine and different types of energy medicine, that this all actually has real value because we are electrical beings. And so just think of, you know, they've said that I've heard that being subjected to 5G is like having 20 minutes per day of living inside of a microwave. That can't be good, right?
No.
For those of you that know what microwave frequencies do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, this is also, the ex-head of Microsoft Canada has spoken out about 5G, saying that it uses millimeter wave technology that they use in directed energy weapons in the US and Israeli militaries. So these are actually weaponized frequencies, and to think that they're going to have no effect. The basics to understand is that 5G exposes us to much higher levels of radiation and frequency than the current 4G technology, and the current 4G technology hasn't even been proven safe, right? Not only that, but because 5G is really not that functional, it has a hard time going through buildings and other solid objects. They're going to have to put in one tower every 500 feet in order for this to be an effect.
It's not very efficient, let's put it that way.
It's not efficient at all. I mean, it's crazy that they're even attempting this, you know, for super speed wireless that we don't even need, you know, so that we can all have smart fridges and smart appliances and self-driving cars and all of this stuff that we don't need, that does not do anything to actually address our problems, that actually creates a health catastrophe, you know, across all species on this planet, is basically what they're setting up. There's also, mentioning about the energy, there's also a book called The Invisible Rainbow that's been making the rounds by Arthur Furstenberg. And it basically outlines that historically, every time there's been a huge increase in the electrification of Earth, that's been followed by a flu pandemic. And he's outlined this throughout history, that our immune systems can't take this extreme levels of electrification, and 5G is just, you know, off the charts levels of radiation and frequency that we're going to be bombarded with 24/7. So it's, you know, it's the science has already proven basically that electromagnetic field exposure is damaging to health. There are over 1,000 scientific studies showing health damage related to electromagnetic frequency in general. So that's the lower forms that we've been, you know, that we've been using over time. I believe about 200 of the most recent of these studies can be seen on the site 5gcrisis.com. Okay, so if anyone's worried, if everyone thinks we're fear mongering, or this is not something that we need to be, you know, battling actively, you know, take a look at some of those studies, and then understand that 5G is, you know, exponentially more radiation than, as far as we know, than biological organisms have ever been exposed to in the history of this planet, right? So, you know, maybe in Atlantis, maybe that was one of the reasons why Atlantis went anywhere. Hard to say, right? But basically, this is a, you know, severe health issue waiting to happen. It also has damaging effects on water, and of course, because of the oxygen, the damage to oxygen, and of course, our bodies are made up mostly of water. We need water, clean water, unirradiated water, in order to maintain our health.
Yeah, this ties into so many things that are all part of the plan to wipe out humanity. And you got to think, okay, there's a small percentage of them, so to speak, right? Those who are at the top of the pyramid, the evil elite, and billions of us. But they keep the masses ignorant and docile and accepting so that we are not a threat. Just imagine, it would just be game over if we all just started marching the streets, stomping on our cell phones, and just like, screw this system. And they don't want that. They are so organized. They don't want us to be organized. They want us to be separate. They're talking about social distancing. They're making us fearful of, everything, including each other. And so we're distrustful of everything but them, right? And they're going to give out money now. There's this talk about the stimulus package here. And
and I mean, they have people policing each other, right? Like social shaming. If you even like leave the house in a group of 2 or 3 people, like, oh, that's just, I mean,
there's fines now, in the Netherlands.
Orwellian is like, honestly, an understatement at this point. Right. You can be thrown in jail for not practicing. You can be thrown in jail for 6 months in one of the Canadian provinces. I'm not sure if they've all adopted this, but one of the Canadian provinces, you can be thrown in jail for 6 months for not following social distancing. So if someone turns you in for not following social distancing, I mean, $50,000 fine. It's beyond belief. I mean, and people have been terrified to such an extent that they're accepting martial law. They're accepting absolute authoritarian control of every aspect of their lives, every aspect of their movement. And Chiron in Aries as well would be related to painful attacks related to movement, right? Like not being able to move, not being able to do what we instinctually want to do.
Right. And another thing that's happening right now as it relates to the virus, because, a lot of people are indoors, there's going to be a lot more jobs on the internet. There's going to be a lot more focus on the internet. And I just got a notice on my phone saying, as a free gift to you, we're giving you a bonus of 15 gigabytes added to your data, plan because of the pandemic. And I'm thinking, oh, great, more incentive to stay on my phone 24/7, and get fried, right? So,
although I have to say that most office buildings are going to be way more intense electromagnetic radiation than a person's home. You know what I mean? So schools or any of those type of places, they're just hotbeds of especially universities, right? Everyone's got a cell phone. So you've got like thousands of cell phones in one location.
That is true.
So I almost feel like people are, even though there's more home time, even just getting out of those organizations.
Yeah. And another thing that 5G is a component of the 5G is the surveillance. This is going to eradicate all forms of privacy for everyone eventually if they don't fight back against this, because basically this is all toward the totalitarian surveillance through not just smartphones and computers, but smart houses, smart everything, smart furniture, smart refrigerators, smart toys for kids, smart clothing. Isn't that insane?
Absolutely. Yeah, I really do think this is sort of, the United Nations Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, as far as forcing us into these smart city mega cities. And Wuhan, I believe this is kind of a drill for, and Wuhan was kind of one of the primary, they're basically looking for any leaks, right? Looking for any dissenters, looking for any holes in their absolute authority over us, and health security. That's another phrase that I've seen implanted, and kind of, this idea of, they can run your health history, and they can, enforce certain rules on you based on your health history. They can curtail your movement based on your health history. They can obviously force quarantine you based on your health history. So it adds a whole new element of insanity. Oh, and this would be a good segue into perhaps the ID 2020, if you'd like to talk a little bit about that. Because of course, this also coincides with a forced vaccination agenda, right? Because everyone's so terrified of this, what's probably a man-made virus that's been unleashed on us. they're so terrified that they are going to be demanding forced vaccination of people.
Yeah, well, and some of you may be aware that Bill Gates was talking about a pandemic last year in a Netflix documentary. I didn't watch it, but I read about it on the Daily News UK, and he was talking about it also coming from China or something. Everything was so similar to what's happening now. And you know that this multi-billionaire is, it's not a coincidence that he's suddenly stepping down to get involved in philanthropic work, which is just really a cover up for the fact that what has already been set into place, what is already being pushed for, is this ID 2020 chip. By the way, they're talking about real ID as if that's the thing, right? But really what's beneath that, that's even more, that's actually, this is something that is not being talked about as much, but it is a very real threat, which is it's via vaccination, and it would be a microchip inserted into, you know, into the skin, and it's basically like a mini computer receiver. So from a distance, people can be programmed, they can be monitored. I mean, this, some people say, is the mark of the beast spoken of in the book of Revelations. And really, you've talked before about how a lot of the biblical prophecies are things that the elite have been, you know, tapped into using this plot for their agenda.
Actually making it come true.
They're actually, yeah, it's like what do you call that? Predictive programming through the Bible, through religion.
Yes.
And the Talmud as well. I mean, this is not just in Christianity, but I think a lot of Christians don't realize that their Bible is being used in this way. But yeah, it's really crazy to think about. That's what is being pushed for right now. And another thing, just I don't want to, just before I forget about it, was speaking of smart cities, we also don't hear much about NEOM, which, have you heard about NEOM, the Saudi Arabian, it's like multi-billion-dollar investment of a complete smart city that they're working on. And we should be asking why, right? Because this all coincides with the upcoming age of Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius, which is the push for transhumanism, the push for basically, you know, technology to take over people's jobs, so there's less need for humans and robots will do it all for us, right? So that's part of why this whole ID 2020 thing is a huge threat, because it just means that people are literally marked like cattle. They can be controlled. And what's even more terrifying than that is they're going to try to make this mandatory, so that if you don't have the chip, you can't buy groceries, or you can't get medical help or whatever. Like, you're just not considered part of society anymore. So that's what's being pushed for.
Yeah. So we have to be aware of all of these kind of mandated, forced agendas that are coming into play with this, and resist. Now's the time to resist, because that Pluto in Aquarius transit is no joke. It could literally be the end of biological human beings, and we do not want that. We do not want that. I will not live as a robot. I will not live as an android. I will not live as a transhumanist being.
Time is of the essence.
Time is of the essence. And it really is, because they're using this shutdown as an excuse to install 5G towers on United States schools, right? Where the kids are going to be. Kids are going to be one of the most susceptible groups, obviously, to this monkeying with their energetic frequency. I'm just going to mention that there's a video that a gentleman put up called, the YouTube channel is called Logic Before Authority. And he had an email come to him from a school board member, and this was leaked by a school board member. They were kind of risking themselves, that during this shutdown, crews were going to be coming in and putting in the 5G towers on top of the schools. And the crews that were coming in to put them in had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and they had to tell people that they were disinfecting crews. So they were coming in to clean the schools. And this person on this local school board could also tap into the computer system for like school boards kind of countrywide. And this person said that this is going on in schools all across the United States right now. And there's been, dozens of people reporting on the internet that they've seen suspicious crews of white vans at schools, and they've seen the actual towers going up. And so this is actually going on under the cloak of this terror, this hysteria. They're bringing in martial law, they're bringing in the 5G grid, they're bringing in, it's going to attempt to bring in, forced vaccination and the microchipping agenda. It's all sort of dovetailing right now. So time really is of the essence. And the thing about the astrology that really jumps out at me is with Saturn setting up shop on that 0 and 1 degree Aquarius over the next few months until July 1st, we do have a chance to sort of roll back some of the progress that they've made, right? So because Saturn is going to be kind of concentrating on the earliest degree of Aquarius, so they're really trying to get their foothold in right now, as far as setting up this control grid, this technology-based control grid, and really taking it to the next level, right? And the frequency attacks, and really kind of just destroying our immune systems, destroying our ability to fight back, right? That's been going on for hundreds of years, but that's one of the things that's going on. So as people, we can use, they use astrology for their nefarious deeds. Well, we can turn it on their ass. We can turn it around, and we can take control of that astrology, and we can take control of the energy, and we can reverse what they're doing. Saturn is going to be concentrating on that 0 and 1 degree, and then it's going to go backwards. It's going to move off that degree. So it's going to move in retrograde motion. Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus are all going to go retrograde simultaneously around the middle of May. So this is a key point where we're building the resistance, right? And we're just, it's anything you feel compelled to do, anything you feel instinctually might plant a seed or might get the ball rolling. It's really requiring independent action. I think Chiron in Aries would be the healing effect of independent actions, just doing whatever you can, whatever is in your power, even if it's the tiniest little thing, right? Even if it's putting a sticker in your window, or putting a sign up, posting a sign on a community bulletin board about 5G or whatever, right? There's just these little actions that are necessary right now. So now Yerevan and I would like to also talk about what people can do, because this is a situation, as so many situations, that where people are being convinced that they're helpless. There's nothing they can do. These authoritarian structures are just a done deal. There's nothing little old me can do. That's the actual opposite, right, of what the real situation, which is that if everyone who feels compelled to do something does something, we really start to generate some momentum. So the two-pronged element that we have going on here is that we are going to focus on healing, beefing up our immune systems, frequency healing, and shielding. Okay, so shielding as much as possible. And then the second prong is some socio-political action. So I will turn the tables over to Yerevan, and she's going to tell us some of the things that she's researched as far as what can help us to protect our health from detrimental frequencies.
Sure. So first of all, I am a huge proponent of doing what's called synergistic formulas and not relying on just one system or one thing, because when it comes to synergy of herbal formulations, for example, the saying is that the sum whole is greater than the parts. So we need to tackle this problem and this threat from many different angles because we are being attacked from many different angles. Now, when it comes to EMF frequencies, there are many different gadgets and stones that, Willow, you've talked about some of these on your website, such as like when it comes to stones, the shungite, and you were talking about shieldite. I don't really know much about shieldite.
Yeah, sorry. I'll mention that afterwards.
Okay, yeah. So some of the other stones, black tourmaline is one of the best deflectors of negative energy, so to speak, and EMF. And there are other stones that they may, I don't know if they've been proven to actually help against EMF, but they can be used to help block certain energies and help just for their grounding qualities. They can help add another layer of protection by wearing, carrying, or just having in your environment. And those would be hematite. Hematite and lodestone and pyrite in particular are high iron, and iron is a radiation absorber. Also, mochi marbles, also known as shaman stones, which come from a sandstone desert, and they are like these round, smooth balls, and I've found them to be also helpful for pain relief, interestingly enough. Sapphire is a stone that I think because of its frequency can help deflect and just offer it like a sort of overall energy support. Obsidian is another good one. Amazonite, which is a kind of a soft blue-green stone, is known to be not only protective against certain frequencies, but also very calming, which is what a lot of people need right now. So especially, you know, it's been talked about, but it does seem that people who, like elderly people and people that are already, their immune systems are already compromised, are more vulnerable to these frequencies, although they're harmful for all of us. So there are certain herbs that can help boost the immune system, such as adaptogens. I would highly recommend adaptogens, and there's a long list of those that may be helpful, such as astragalus, which is also a great immune stimulator, maca root, eleuthero, ginseng, holy basil, which is also a great stress reducer for anxiety and also pain relief. And it's a great, there's lots of teas now that contain that holy basil, and so it's a great thing to add to your already existing health regimen. And I also highly encourage people to test things out using muscle testing or using a pendulum, because I'm one of those people that believes that there is no cure-all. That's another reason why I am against vaccination, because I think everyone's body chemistry is completely unique and responds to stimulus in different ways. And so, you know, some of us, we need more or less of certain substances, certain types of food or whatever. So you want to be sure that you are going to tailor a program for you and your loved ones. And if you don't know how to do that, I would suggest going to a practitioner who does know how to do that, who does know how to do kinesiology, muscle testing. But it's very easy to learn. So now's a great time to learn. If you're stuck at home, you want something to do, just try.
Do you want to do a demonstration of how you muscle test, and I'll do a demonstration of how I do it, just to show people quickly how to do it?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. So there's so many methods. One is there's the not to make that simple, but when you put your index and thumb together, and then with your other hand you go inside and you're gonna hold the thumb and index together, and like you're going to resist the pressure when you're going to with your other thumb and index finger, you're going to try to break that open, right? And so you're going to try to keep this tight so that you can't do it. So when you're doing it, you want to ask yourself first, yes or no? Like, what is yes? What is no? To make sure that your polarities are giving you an accurate sense of yes and no. And an accurate sense of yes and no would be, okay, this is really hard I can't easily just open that. And or yes, I'm sorry, the other way around. So yes would be like that, and no would be like,
sorry, just lift your hands up a little bit higher.
Oh yeah, sorry. So that's one way of doing it. So you're gonna go, so what, give me a yes, give me a no. So I'm being very dramatic right now when I do that, because it's very subtle. You're gonna feel you're gonna feel that it's looser. I'm sorry, you did catch me off guard because I wasn't ready to give a demonstration to get. I feel like that's something I want to be more prepared for, because this is a huge topic, and I would just recommend looking it up online, using a pendulum. In your body, there are several currents of energy in which you can literally use any of the major circuits in your body. For one, there's one that runs right on the top of your thigh. And I can't really demonstrate it, but all I can say is that if you were to put the bottom finger on your thigh, right in the middle, like that, and put the other finger like you're making a cross, and you're trying to, you're pressing down on the finger, and the yes is, again, like the yes is like you're gonna not be able to, you're not gonna be able to like force the finger up, or you are if it's a no. So that's one way of doing it. There are so many different methods of doing this, and if you have a partner, it might be easier. So the partner method is that one person's gonna hold out their arm in a fist. Sorry, there's not enough room to show that. And the other person is going to press down while you resist the pressure. So you would say to that person, okay, resist this pressure, resist. And if it's hard to go down, then you know it's like a strong response or a yes, or whatever that means to you. You can say this means yes, this means no. So you get a strong response. It's hard to press this down, and sometimes it'll just drop. And you might say, okay, well, that doesn't mean anything. What if people are just making the answer, creating yes or no based on what they want it to be? And that's why you should test things out first with blindfolds or things that you don't care about, so you can begin to get a sense of how this works.
Yeah.
So, but before I wanted to finish talking about some of the remedies. Another thing is cilantro pesto for heavy metal. It helps to detox from heavy metals and fallout radiation. And it works by chelating, helping to like those heavy metals that are stuck in your body, or that sense, even that radiation that's affecting your body. It helps to kind of flush it out of your system. And you can make a easy pesto, so to speak, with everything except the cheese, right? So, and everything except the basil. So instead of basil, you're going to use cilantro and lemon juice and olive oil and make a paste. Another thing that I would recommend is get a diffuser and use essential oils. Now, these don't directly protect you from EMF, but they are going to help your immune system and keeping the environment of your living space or your office space clear. And also with symptoms that you might have, they might help decrease the symptoms of nausea, for example, that you can get from too much radiation. So things like peppermint, ginger, even patchouli if you can stand it, cardamom. and just putting these oils in there. Clove is also highly antiviral, antibacterial. So these are parts of different formulas that you can make at home once you understand more about the actual chemistry of the herbs and the oils. And so personally, what I like to do is I'm not just addressing one issue, I'm addressing the possible symptoms, the symptoms I already have, the preventive measures, and the energetic too. From the energetic standpoint, I like to use flower essences, and one of the most commonly used for protection from EMF is called Yarrow, used to be called Yarrow Special Formula, now it's Yarrow Environmental Solution. So that's about it for now, and I'll let you, because I know we were running out of time. So.
Oh, that's okay. I think we can just go till we're done. So yes, thanks for all those ideas. That's it's really important. And yeah, as Yerevan was mentioning, there are certain stones that you can use. And one of the ones that I've found recently is called shieldite. I have a pendant of it. It's basically very similar to shungite, but it needs to be grounded regularly. So so you can look up shieldite, shield with ITE on the end of it. That's something that I've found definitely makes my place feel a lot clearer. I have a lot more energy with it. I also have a pyramid that I have to clear the entire room. The pendant is more for wearing outdoors. You can get little discs or little rectangles to put on the back of your cell phone to eliminate that. Another product that I had recommended to me by a naturopath that I know is it's called 5G BioShield, and it's a USB it's a thing that you plug into the USB of your computer. Now I don't have that, and it's quite expensive. So I can't I can't promote it or anything, but that's one thing that I've seen that people have used. And there's also sort of a less EMF warehouse that has all kinds of Faraday cages, materials to make Faraday cages, and paint, and all kinds of things that you can do to potentially cut down. So as we're saying, there's no one size fits all situation. The way that I muscle test, I'll just quickly show, is I do the baby finger and the thumb together.
Yeah, that's another great one.
The other baby finger kind of pulls through. So if you say, show me a yes, I can't pull it through. Show me a no, I can easily pull it through. So of course you have to, and you have to have no expectations of what answer you're gonna get. That's the tricky part. So as far as, and then actually the arm situation too, you can actually do that on yourself as well, where if you're pushing down, you hold your arm out and you kind of put some resistance in, and then if you push down, you say, show me a yes, show me a no. But that doesn't work as well on me as the fingers. It works better with my mom. So it's like different techniques. I would just go on YouTube and learn some different techniques. And
everyone's gonna find their favorite method, and I've seen people use the middle finger instead, or not the middle, but the ring finger.
Exactly. So it just depends what you're gonna get the best result with. But always ask, show me a yes, show me a no to begin with, so like Yerevan says. Okay, so that's the shieldite and the 5G BioShield. And the other thing I would suggest is just eating well, and that's the problem when people are as panicked and stressed out as they are right now, right? Is you're not necessarily going to be focusing on nutrition. So as much whole food as possible, fruits and vegetables, organic. Please filter your water at this point. Do not drink tap water at this point if you have any sort of health concerns. I use a Berkey water filter.
Oh, wait.
There are many different filters.
I didn't hear you. Your voice was really distorted. Do you use a what? Your voice?
I use a Berkey water filter. So it's BRKEY, but there are many different filters systems people can get. These are all things you can do just to kind of, and these are the same kind of pieces of advice I gave out after Fukushima, right? Because it's like, it takes stress off your body so that your body can deal. I'm not actually able to use heavy metal chelators, but green apples, Granny Smith apples, apparently are the best, just regular food kind of thing, other than, cilantro and chlorella, spirulina, things like that. I can't use those because my body's so sensitized. So, but I can eat green apples. They have a really high amount of pectin. So anything with pectin in it will help to clear heavy metals out of your body. If you can use something a little more intense, there's also modified citrus pectin. So they sort of concentrate it into a powder, and you can eat the modified citrus pectin. If you can handle infrared saunas or doing sweats, that's another way that you can release
that's a good point.
metals out of your body. So all of this just helps because heavy metals in your body will make you more sensitive to electromagnetic radiation, unfortunately. So, and because we're all chock full of heavy metals at this point, getting rid of them is, or help, just taking a little bit of the burden off your body is important. But of course, always go slowly and gently, right? Because you don't want to overload yourself, especially if you have an underlying health condition. And your organs are already kind of stressed or.
I wanted to add something right there too, that a lot of people who have compromised immune systems will probably do better with liquid formulas. And the reason is that a lot of people with compromised immune systems also have problems digesting things. They have, irritable bowel syndrome, or they're just not absorbing. So you're going to have a more effective result with liquid extracts or powders that you can dissolve into a tea. So like when it comes to chaga mushroom and reishi and all those things, it's nice now they have all these powders because they're so much easier to absorb than just swallowing a pill when you drink it. So
that's a really good point. Yeah. And I may experiment with that because I definitely can't take pills of any kind.
And sorry. There's a couple other things I forgot. Magnet therapy. This is not very common, and sometimes it's not very accessible, but magnet therapy can be very helpful in some instances, along with acupuncture, which is, both of these are what you would call electromagnetic related type therapies, because it addresses, the electrical currents in the body. And magnets they've been shown to help relieve pain and help the flow of energy through the body. And sometimes I use these little magnets that I just stick onto certain meridians on my fingers. I just use this like medical grade tape, and it's amazing how sometimes it'll just help me to get calm. And there's a website, maybe I can link it to the video afterwards, that sells magnetic bracelets that are supposed to be therapeutic and help deflect, help with the EMF factor. And salt is one of my favorite stones to use for protection overall, negative energies. And the salt lamps, Himalayan salt lamps, help also, like in your home, to said something about they bring negative ions to the environment. They're very grounding, and the salt is an element that's going to help ground and protect and deflect. And that's a very old, well-known one that, for hundreds of thousands of years.
Would you say sort of like sea salt, Himalayan pink salt, or table salt? Are they all?
Any and all forms of salt. Now, they all have slightly different characteristics, of course, and even for internal use. For example, people like in Ayurvedic medicine, they recommend different types of salt for different body types. And if you are suffering from dehydration, then you want a hydrating rather than a very harsh kind of salt that's going to make you more dehydrated. So the hydrating kind of salt would be just a tiny little pinch of French gray or Celtic sea salt, and it's just a small amount. And you don't want to use a metal spoon to stir it. You'd rather shake it or use wood, like a wooden stick or something in your water in the morning. And it also helps to detoxify your body.
Okay, awesome. One thing also that I thought of when you said the magnetic bracelets is that along with Shieldite on the same site, they also sell these items called Iyashi, and they're along the same lines. They're sort of, I would say, like accelerated crystal healing, maybe, or frequencies that have been crystals that have been infused with frequencies. And the Iyashi is said to repair the damage done by EMFs, whereas Shieldite will protect and like shield from the EMFs. So I use those in combination. I will say that the Iyashi gives me pretty intense detoxification symptoms, which I always get. So even after like after acupuncture or any type of natural treatment. So that's a normal reaction, but just with any of these things, be careful and do muscle testing to make sure that this is the product you need and how many times you need to use it, how long you need to use it. You know, you can ask your body what it needs and your body will communicate that to you as long as you're sort of clear of expectations about what it's going to tell you. So I will just follow, I will just maybe spend the last little bit. Yerevan, is there anything else you'd like to add before I talk about the sociopolitical actions?
No, I can't think of anything at the moment.
Okay, so just quickly to end off the show, I will mention that one of the healing things we can do with Chiron and Aries is take direct action, okay? Whatever action you feel compelled to do. Don't feel hopeless, don't feel helpless. Ask yourself, what can I do? What's in my power to do? What might create a ripple, right? We're creating little ripples in the frequency, right? We're hijacking the crappy situation and turning it back to our own best interests. So one of the things that is going on in general on a collective level is global actions to stop 5G. Okay, these have been ongoing. And there's a global action being called for on April 25th and 26th. And that coincides with a new moon in Taurus, conjunct Uranus in Taurus, which happens about the 23rd, I believe. So I think that's a really good time to create some momentum. And right now what we're doing is we're kind of planting little seeds that will create that momentum. And one of the things that I am trying to initiate, one of the things I am initiating, one of the things I'm doing myself is writing a letter or email to town or city councils. Okay, so your town or city councilor, and asking the town or city councilor to make a request of the federal government on behalf of this community that we not have 5G rolled out here. That we do not want, putting a line in the sand that we do not want 5G in our community. So basically the idea is that this is being brought in top down, right? The pyramid scheme. This is being brought in from the federal level, well, from beyond the federal level, let's say, from the global government level, the New World Order level, but then trickling into the national governments. And then they're bringing it down on all of the people. And so how we turn the tables, how we flip the script is we push back from the grassroots. So we galvanize our opposition at the local level, right where we stand, right where we sit, okay? And we start pushing back. So a letter to your town or city councilor asking a formal request of the federal government, because the federal government is where this is coming from. The federal government is in charge of internet and communications, okay?
I'm losing connection. Wait.
Oh, sorry.
It's saying internet unstable, and I missed when you said I missed that part, when you write to your...
Okay, your town or city councilor.
Okay.
And then simultaneously what I'm suggesting is to write a letter to the editor, to your local newspaper.
Okay.
Okay, and basically just outlining the dangers of 5G, and encouraging other citizens to get involved and to contact the city council with that same request. Okay, so I recently found an alternative message board site, and it's called Ruckus, ruqqus.com. And I've recently set up a Stop 5G Global Ruckus Guild. And in that guild, I have sample letters. So as I say, I've already sent the letters to the editor to 2 of my local papers and to my city councilor. And I've written a very concise, I'm a trained journalist, so I know how to be concise, right? So I've written a very concise letter, one that can be sent to the town and city councilor, one that can be sent to the newspapers. And you don't feel that you have to copy and paste it word for word, but there's information in there. For example, that 26,000 scientists are already protesting the dangers of 5G and don't think that 5G is safe. The fact that there has been an international EMF scientist appeal calling this a human rights issue, saying that we need immediate action to stop 5G and to reverse 5G where it is. Okay, so basically you can take information from these letters if you so desire. You can also write your own letter from scratch. But I think that that's one of the direct routes to go to, is galvanizing that grassroots action. So I will put a link to the Ruckus group and also to the letters in the description of this video. And if anyone would like, there's also ideas for other actions that are being taken. There's a video being put out by EMF, by Stop 5G International. They're asking for submissions from individuals explaining why they're against 5G. The deadline for that is April 10th, I believe. There are posters that you can print out and again, hang up around your town, or hang in the window of your home, or put in the window of your car, whatever, right? Anything to just kind of push back a little bit. So yeah, that's another, as well as strengthen our immune systems, shielding ourselves, and creating healing frequencies. We can also be taking those types of actions. So.
Whoops. Thank you, Willow. Great information. I think that's what people need. Is right now they need to know there's hope and there's something that they can do about this. It all starts at home. It starts with each and every individual who's listening to this, and that if you think that this information is important enough, then you are part of the solution.
Absolutely. Thanks for having this discussion, Yerevan. And thanks for tuning in to Dark Moon Podcast number 6. Until next time.
Thank you.